Time out. I'm going to actually go to the one person who's been calm and reserved and respectful, and that's Batia. Batia, your response to what you've heard so far?
With all due respect to all the panelists, I disagree with Jonathan. I think this is a really good deal. I disagree with Ahmed. I do think that Hamas's capabilities have been severely degraded, and I think that they have never been this unpopular with the people of Gaza. You're seeing people speaking up against Hamas in a way that we really have not in a very long time. There were protests in 2019. They were brutally, brutally suppressed. So I really do think that this is a very ripe moment for something new to come out of this. And I think that's why, from our point of view as Americans, we elected Donald Trump because of the foreign policy that he promised, which was to be absolutely ruthless when it came to terrorism and absolutely dovish when it came to counterproductive wars that have nothing to do with us. When barbarians come into your homeland and steal your women and rape your women.
Barbarian, says Batia. Welcome back to Zees Political Arrow, where we're going to pierce through the spin, no pun intended there, Mr. Piers Morgan, and hit the heart of the matter. We continue on with today's panel. Piers Morgan, Mariyum, Jonathan, Ahmed, and Batia. Let's not dance around any of this. Why is Israel's defense always justified while Hamas actions are instantly labeled terrorism? Ahmed's here to explain why Hamas is buckling up, and the big question is, will this ceasefire stick? Or are we just hitting the snooze on the next conflict? Is Jonathan really out of the IDF? Or is Mariyum onto something? And can Batia convince us that Israel's actions are beyond reproach? It's a debate you don't want to miss, trust me. Stay tuned and let's break this down together.
Soldiers and bring your women back.
I can't
and so I think that this is a very important moment,
I cannot
and it's
in a
showing
panel
us
where
what
you
we're
are
going to
saying
be
Ahmed,
seeing from the Trump
No, but where
administration
barbarians
in
enter
terms
your
of
homeland
a
and
new
rape your
foreign
women.
policy.
Yes, that is what they are.
That's what I'm looking forward to in the next
Is that really the
administration.
tenor of the conversation, Batia? Barbarians enter your homeland and rape your women?
Yeah,
Where
that
is the
is
rape?
exactly
Okay, out of
what
interest,
they are.
Ahmed, okay.
Ahmed, Piers,
hang on, please, everybody. Ahmed, I'm very curious.
With all due respect,
I'm very curious, Ahmed. If you don't call what happened on October the 7th barbaric, acts of atrocity committed by barbarians, what would you call it out of interest?
What do you call it?
No, I'm asking
Israeli prison?
I'm not playing whataboutery. I'm asking about your indignation about the categorization of what happened on October the 7th as barbaric.
Come on, we didn't join Piers. The answer to your question, the reason I started speaking is because she called it barbaric. I didn't take issue with that use of, that's on her to use those adjectives. I took issue with the facts that are not accurate. She's claiming women were raped systematically or whatever. That is not true. Let me.
Israel's own
Piers,
prosecutor says there's no
Batia, let me just challenge you. Israeli authorities admitted last week that after 18 months of investigations, no allegations of rape or sexual assault have been
because
filed.
the victims were murdered, because the victims are dead, because the women were murdered as they were raped.
So why not allow an
you're not going
independent investigation
to tell lies without any responses.
Constructive conversation.
There's no case to proceed because the women were murdered and butchered in cold blood. That's why there's no file.
Sexual assault hotlines found no evidence of such crimes. In fact, the reporter, Annette Schwartz, noted no one had met a victim of sexual assault. So despite this...
Because they were murdered. It's very convenient when you rape someone and then murder them.
The reason I am saying this...
Guys, you can repeat lies until you're blue in the face.
Let me just finish for 30 seconds. No.
You've been interrupting this entire conversation and filling it with nonsense and lies. You've been saying genocide and quoting all kinds of odd sources.
I am using facts.
It's utter and complete nonsense, and you've been cherry picking.
Jonathan, I'm not cherry picking. I am saying there is a recent
yes, you are. You are cherry picking with the capital C.
You know why you're interrupting
You know what? It's now becoming a watchable again. Okay.
Because this is the playbook.
You know what? I have read enough. I've read enough reports by people like Christina Lamb at the Sunday Times, one of the great reporters of the world, that it is beyond any doubt that women were sexually assaulted and raped, right? And if you try and pretend they weren't, then I'm sorry, you're living in cloud cuckoo land. I want to bring in the Texas. I'm going to bring in. I'm going to bring in. I'm sorry.
I'm really sorry.
When everyone talks,
I'm
no one
really
can hear
sorry.
you. I'm sorry. I am moderating the panel. I'm going to bring in the Texas Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw. Then I'll come back to the panel when hopefully you will all have learned how to speak not over each other,
Yes,
but
Daddy.
Yes,
Yes,
Daddy.
Daddy.
You know what? It's not about being
Right.
yes, Daddy. It's about being respectful to a panel. Well, listen, if you're going to carry on, Miriam, you may as well
I
leave.
will absolutely
Honestly,
carry on.
It's
You
honestly
asked
pathetic.
me to come, and I will say what I need to say.
Oh, it's honestly, it's childish. Don't be childish. Let me bring in Dan Crenshaw. Dan, thank you for waiting so patiently. Dan, with you, I wanted to talk specifically about the role of Donald Trump here, because he's president-elect. Obviously, inauguration coming on Monday. He sent his envoy, Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, last Friday, met the Qatari Prime Minister to discuss the developments in the region. He then went to see Netanyahu. And after that talk, Netanyahu has obviously said the Prime Minister would send the director of Mossad, David Barnea, to Qatar's capital in order to try and advance this deal. It seems like Trump, through his Middle East envoy, acting in his behest, has achieved more in getting us to the place of a potential ceasefire and deal than Joe Biden's managed since October the 7th.
There's a couple of things happening here. And first, Piers, I promise not to call you daddy. Okay.
Thank you very much. I would appreciate that, Dan.
It'd be weird.
Very weird.
Look, there's obviously a Trump effect, and this is because of Trump's leadership and charisma. Of course, he has a big personality, but it's also because it is the incoming administration. This is, of course, who all of these players in the Middle East are going to want to talk to. So this is not surprising at all. There's another thing that we've seen over the last year, which is the Biden administration and the Democratic Party in general has always been caught between these two factions, this sort of pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel faction. And, they're largely a Jewish voting base, which supports Israel. So they've never really known what to do politically. Donald Trump doesn't have that problem. Republicans don't have that problem. We are for Israel. It's that simple. And that also makes deal making much more simple. So Biden would withhold weapons, right? Especially certain pieces of equipment, for instance, that would make dumb bombs, smart bombs. Didn't make a lot of sense. He would allow the United Nations to condemn Israel. It just wouldn't. It wasn't the amount of support that you would see under Donald Trump. So Hamas sees this, right? Hamas sees that they could probably continue the PR, the worldwide PR campaign against Israel that they have been successful in doing for decades and decades and decades under a Biden administration. But they see Trump here on the horizon, and Trump makes comments, of course, like there will be hell to pay if you don't return the hostages. Hamas believes him, and they should, because, look, we have 4 years of a Trump presidency where he really did do what he meant. I mean, he killed General Soleimani just because he was on a layover in Baghdad. He's that kind of president. And so you can expect that he's going to do what he says he's going to do, and it's going to push these people into a better deal. There's plenty of a debate over whether this is a good deal for Israel. I will say that's hard to say. You have to ask somebody who's from Israel. For America, what do we generally want strategically? Look, we want to weaken Iran. Well, Israel gave us that. We want to weaken Hezbollah. They really gave us that. We want a Syria that we can actually talk to. Well, that's happening right now. And we want to severely weaken Hamas. So for America's perspective, and I would say the last thing, what do we want? We want stability. We don't want chaos everywhere. That's good for America. If this deal gets us there, I would say that's a pretty good thing.
Are you concerned, Dan, about these reports coming out from American intelligence and from the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken? It seems like many of the killed Hamas fighters have been replaced with like for like. In other words, this idea that they've been killing and depleting most of Hamas may not actually be the reality on the ground, that they've just been replacing them as fast as they've been losing them.
It's possible. I need to really look into those reports and see what's real and what isn't. When you do replace fighters, you're not replacing those fighters with seasoned, trained fighters. You're replacing them with new fighters that need to be trained. So either way, Hamas has been decimated. And as I understand part of this deal, Hamas can never be the governing authority in Gaza ever again. Correct me if I'm wrong. I understand that to be part of the roadmap in this deal. So they can recruit as many fighters as they want, and then they'll be killed again by the Israeli Defense Forces, and presumably, possibly with American help, especially under a Trump presidency. So, look, neither of us, being Israel or the United States, have any interest in Hamas ever regaining any power. That's because that wouldn't be good for any of us, and it certainly wouldn't be good for the people of Gaza. That should be obvious to everyone by now. All Hamas has ever done is create conflict and misery for the people of Gaza. It's not like we don't have any sympathy for civilians in Gaza. I absolutely do. It's horrific. But the people who've created this war, it's very clear. It's Hamas. The people who want genocide is Hamas. It's in their charter. From river to the sea means genocide of the Jewish state. The Jews, the Israelis, are not committing genocide. That word gets thrown around all the time. Well, you're misusing it. It's not the correct definition. They have done more than any military in history to attempt to get civilians out of places where they are about to move in and conduct operations against Hamas. That is the opposite of genocide. War is messy, it's horrible, and there are casualties. And I wish there weren't. But when you have an atrocity like you do on October 7th, you have to question what choice you have. You have to eradicate the organization that conducted it.
Where do you see this in 2-3 years' time? I mean, how do you see the future of Gaza, for example? It's quite clear from their rhetoric. There are certain people on Netanyahu's cabinet, for example, who I think would be quite happy to never see Palestinians back in Gaza if they could possibly achieve that. I'm not saying all of them think that. I'm not even saying Netanyahu thinks that. But there are certainly people on that cabinet, I think, whose rhetoric suggests they would. Do you see a situation in 2-3 years' time of Gaza being rebuilt, a Hamas-free Gazan people being led by, I don't know, I mean, whether it's the Palestinian Authority or whether it's an Arab coalition or whoever it may be? How do you see the future here? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks incredibly complicated.
It is, and it's very hard to predict. Don't be a fool and try to predict what happens in the Middle East. You'll just end up being wrong. But we can say what we hope. And what we hope is that this roadmap, this peace plan, works out the way it says it's going to work out, which is Hamas is not the governing authority, an international coalition as an interim governing authority. In the end, the Palestinian people choose a governing authority of some sort in some form or fashion. Of course, that didn't turn out so well last time when they actually kicked out the Palestinian Authority, threw them off rooftops, and elected Hamas so that they could be at war for the next 15 years. But that is still the hope. You're not going to get rid of millions of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Okay, that's not an option. Israel controlling it and governing it is not an option. It's not an option for Israel. They don't want to do that. Remember, they tried that before 2006. Then they tried letting it be autonomous, and look what they got. Thousands of rockets over their neighborhoods, and then October 7th. So ideally, you get Hamas out of the picture. And you have a stronger presence, I think, from Arab countries, more aid coming in, more rebuilding, and then a governing authority that everyone can trust. That's the ideal situation. How you get there is very difficult.
Yeah. Dan Crenshaw, as always, thank you very much indeed for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
I mean, Myriam, I don't see any future in Gaza with Hamas in any kind of power. Do you?
Did we come up against the white man mantra of it's complicated? I think we did, folks. Here we are again.
Well, hang on, what colour are you?
Responding
hang on, what colour are you?
I'm sadly of your camp, Piers.
Oh boy, Mariyum just didn't say that. I gotta pause real quick and call out Dan Crenshaw's performance here. It's a masterclass in double standards. He praises Trump's big personality for achieving more in the Middle East than Biden, yet conveniently ignores the chaos Trump often left in his wake, claiming Republicans have no internal conflict because therefore Israel is like boasting about one-note recipe, simple but lacking depth. Crenshaw's blame on Hamas for all of Gaza's woes conveniently skips over the broader context of blockades and bombing. His dismissal of genocide allegation as war is messy is a cop-out. It's not messy, bruh. It's catastrophic and accountability matters. Hence ICJ's arrest warrant on Bibi. The idea that Trump's threats bought peace is laughable. Diplomacy isn't about scaring people into submission. It's about actual negotiation. Crenshaw's vague vision for Gaza's future is as useful as a weather forecast without checking the skies. Hopeful but ungrounded. His take? All talk, no traction.
You're white. So why are you using skin?
November
Why are you using skin? Well, you're sad you're white.
Sadly in your camp is what I said.
What does that mean?
What
do you mean?
Affiliated with your life.
You're going to toss around skin colour, Jives. What do you mean?
Yes. Anyway, your question
what do you mean?
was.
What do you mean?
That in November 2024.
What do you mean by your skin colour, Jive? Are you saying that because we have white skin, we can't comment on this?
Oh, spare me. This little victim thing you do.
It's not a victim thing. I'm asking you to clarify exactly what you mean when you say these things.
And I will tell you exactly what I'm going to clarify, which is that in November 2024, Yoel Gallant, who is a wanted war criminal, And Israel's ousted defense minister actually told the families of hostages that Israel had actually achieved all its military objectives in Gaza. And he was very clear on something that is well known within Israel.
Should Hamas...
That is that the hostages could
Sorry, you have to answer my question, or I'll move on to somebody else.
I'm still going to your question.
No, answer my question.
Current deal,
should Hamas have any power going forward after this or not?
Amatok. Political objectives of this deal are not, unfortunately, peace, which is the only sort of deal that we should be discussing at this
point. Should Hamas have any power after this?
A political... I'm not Palestinian. How is it for me to even answer that question? What I will tell you...
You seem a world authority. A world authority on everything Israel's doing, but you can't even answer a basic question about whether Hamas should have any power after this.
Yes, sweetheart, I just do analysis.
I'm not your sweetheart, I'm not your daddy, I'm not any of these stupid little jibes you're doing. I am white, a slur you seem to think is somehow worth delivering in the middle of this.
The current deal that we have on the table is really not a ceasefire deal, unfortunately, because there are no guarantees that phase 2 and 3 of the deal will ever be brought about. And I think that's really where the focus of this conversation should be.
You can't answer my question about Hamas having power.
Why don't we talk about serious things, Piers?
Why don't you just answer my question? I would actually say whether Hamas has power after this is a pretty damn serious question.
Do you
think they should?
I will get to that.
Do you think they should?
I will get to that.
Get to it now, because it's the question I've asked you.
I will get to it on my own time.
What's your answer?
My answer is, are you ready to hear it?
Answer it.
Little drum roll for you. Dum-dum-dum-dum. Is that we should be looking at a peace deal that achieves actual peace in the region.
Should Hamas have any power?
At the moment, the current phased proposal does not allow
one more time before I leave you. Should Hamas have any power?
You're going to leave me? Oh, that would be sad. Let's actually talk about
I wouldn't worry about it, because you'll never be back here again. But just for the purposes of the question,
Piers, you think
for the purposes of the question, we're not all 5-year-olds. Why don't you just try and be an adult? Try and be an adult in the room and answer a straight question.
How about you don't talk over me?
No, how about you answer my question or you shut up?
Oh, did
Which one's it going to be?
Just tell me to shut up on
yes,
the show.
I did. No, I gave you a choice. Answer the question or shut up. One of the two. Which one's it going to be?
You're not my dad, sweetheart.
Which one's it going to be?
You're not going to tell me what to do. And
I'm Ahmed, let me go to you, because you seem
the real question
like somebody who won't be calling me sweetheart or dad. No, I'm done with you. I'm sorry. I'm done with you, Myriam. You're a complete... I do actually on my own show. I do on my show. You're a complete and utter half-wit. So let me bring in Ahmed. Ahmed, should Hamas have any power at the end of all this or not?
Whether they should or shouldn't, Piers, it looks likely that they will, as we've heard from all the guests on this panel, essentially. That seems to be what Batya seemed to disagree with me on, even though I was just citing U.S. intelligence and Israeli officials. I do want to just say one thing is clear. I want to correct the record on two things, and I'm not going to take us back, Piers. But, you know, it's in the Likud charter, and it was part of their 1977 election manifesto, this phrase, from the river to the sea. I think it's important that I bring it up because your previous guest said that it was in the Hamas charter. Of course, Hamas has only been around, you know, for 20-some years. The double standards that this speaks to and how narratives around the phrase from the river to the sea are treated, not just by the media, reveals the power dynamics at play here. When Palestinians like myself say it, use it, I have it on a sweater, on a jacket, we're calling for liberation. We're calling for a demand for freedom from decades of displacement and apartheid. Yet, of course, it's twisted into a genocidal threat. Meanwhile, Israeli leaders like Netanyahu, who I think is best described as a war criminal, who has an arrest warrant issued against him, he openly uses it. He claims the same geography, expanding settlements, enforcing policies that erase Palestinians. An entire family was erased today, 11 of them, where they were displaced in Deir el-Balah. And, you know, Piers, the one thing I want to say, I know we disagree on the rape thing, but I do want to say, the reason I interrupted Batya, not only because I was quite shocked to see someone from Newsweek use this sort of terminology and adjectives and language so loosely, but while the media and Batya fixate on these debunked and discredited narratives, let me just get through my sentence, it's largely ignored documented, verified cases of sexual violence committed by Israeli soldiers against Palestinian detainees, including video evidence. A recent UN report details systematic rape, torture, dehumanizing acts that were inflicted even against children. And that is Josh Paul, the former State Department that resigned, who says that. That is not me.
Okay, so I want to bring, we're running out of time. I need to bring in the others. I want to bring in Batia to respond, because Batia, you haven't had much chance to speak before you interrupted. I mean, Batia, how do you see the future here? Because it seems to me that it's horrendously complicated. Nobody has a clear idea of what's going to happen. What do you think is the smart way to resolve all this coming out of the war?
So first of all, just in the spirit of unity, I want to agree with something Ahmed said. Israel does have more power, and that's a good thing. There's this sort of worship of abjection and weakness on the left that leads often to the creation of false equivalences. And I think the first thing you're going to see from the Trump administration's foreign policy is abandoning this need for allies to be weak and equivocation in foreign policy. Trump likes his allies to be strong, and that's what we saw with this deal. When Steve Witkoff went to Doha and to Qatar and then brought Bibi Netanyahu to the table and said, look, this is happening. This is very classic in terms of the kinds of foreign policy we're going to see going forward. What I want to see is safety and security for Israel and self-determination for the Palestinian people. I think probably all of us on this panel want that very, very deeply. And yeah, maybe it is Pollyannish to be seeing this huge uproar from Gazans against Hamas for the first time in so long. But I think that we should be empowering civil society within Gaza. We should be calling upon moderate Arab countries to step up and play a leadership role so that those voices don't get crushed by, I'm sorry, yes, the barbarians in Hamas, but that civil society has a chance
sorry,
to
Myriam, you had
live
your chance.
so that everybody
Sorry,
can
Myriam,
have
you had your chance.
self-determination
Sorry, you don't
and
talk
freedom
over her.
in that land.
You don't talk over her. Sorry, you don't talk
okay,
over
I
her.
had my say.
Please be quiet and let Batia finish. Batia, please finish your point.
It's so dehumanizing for you to use that word.
I finished. Thank you.
I would like Batia to finish her point, please. Stop talking, please.
I'm honestly shocked that people would object to calling Hamas barbarians. Of all the things I said here, I didn't expect that to be controversial.
No, I took issue with the rape, which was not controversial.
Well, they definitely raped and sexually abused women.
Right.
But the point is, where is the accountability of the extremists?
No, sorry, Myriam, you had your chance. Let me bring in Jonathan.
Let me bring in Jonathan.
Jonathan,
the real key
Jonathan, here's my question for you. Myriam, sorry, you've had your chance. You behave like a child. I'll treat you like a child. Sorry. Ahmed, I'm sorry, but you're being let down by
protest movements.
Okay.
We've seen some protest movements.
Can you turn her mic off, please? Turn her mic off.
Yeah, please.
Her mic off. Okay, Jonathan, your chance to talk. Only I can hear her now. Jonathan, you speak.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I, as someone who lives here and intends to continue to live here, and by the way, I would like to live in a peaceful environment where I have my country and the Palestinians have their self-governance, and in the future a country where they have a focus on the future of building their own future, not destroying ours and taking away what we have built through blood, sweat and tears in our ancestral homeland, my forefathers who came here and the people who were here before, but actually them focusing on building their own nation. Now, that will happen once UNRWA is dissolved, once the fantastic and illogical definition of fourth and fifth generation refugees is laid to rest, which I think it should be. There's no other
just to be clear to viewers who are as annoyed, I'm sure, as I am by this juvenile, pathetic performance. The only person who will never be platformed on this show again is you. Because you, Myriam, have turned this, every chance you've got, into a pathetic, juvenile rant.
Piers,
you're not going to be on it again.
Piers, I want to pick up on something Jonathan was saying.
I want Jonathan to finish his point.
Hold on, Ahmed, you've been speaking the entire program. Ahmed, you've been speaking the entire program, so please let me finish my point here. And when we look forward, if we look at this militarily and strategically, and I say this with a lot of sadness as someone who lives here and faces the brunt of Palestinian terrorism, me and my family and my friends, I think this is just a milestone in the way. And I think that the war that was launched against Israel on October 7 by Hamas, and then later joined in by Hezbollah and the Houthis, and then the Iranian regime chimed in, they are all going to continue to fight against Israel, and Israel is going to continue to defend itself. Now, the big difference here, and here's the kicker that all the Palestine lovers and Israel haters will really not like is that we're going to keep on fighting until we win. Winning means living here in our established borders and being able to be prosperous and safe and protected, whether or not people around the world like it or not. And I'm sure that many people don't want us Jews to live safely in our ancestral homeland, but that is what we intend to do. Now, the coming years are going to be tough.
I want Ahmed to just be a quick response.
The coming years are going to be tough.
Okay, Ahmed, finish. Jonathan, I've got to cut you off. I'm sorry.
He's been speaking half the program.
I know, we've run out of time. I want to give him just 30 seconds.
Interrupting
I want to give him 30 seconds to respond. 30 seconds.
You know, we've been disagreeing on whether rape did happen, didn't happen. And all I want to say is Israel's killed 4 more journalists this week. Had they let journalists in from the beginning, we would maybe be able to
I think we all agree. You know what, Ahmed? I genuinely believe, I genuinely think we would all agree that one of the more shameful things of this entire war is that Israel has not allowed international journalists to go in there and report fairly and freely. And when they don't do that,
I want to get this
then you have to ask,
quickly.
what are they hiding?
It's just a rhetorical question, Batya. You seem shocked that I took issue with your use of barbaric. I took more issue with the fact that you were stating as fact as though rape happened, even if Piers agrees.
I do.
Would you call it wondering if you're so willing, Jonathan, don't interrupt. If you're so willing to call Palestinian,
it did happen, and you're not going to whitewash it away.
I'm asking Batya, Jonathan. I know you and I agree about Israel.
I know you are, and I know
that
please,
you're trying
do
with
not
a smooth voice
that way.
to whitewash a lie. But
I did not call Palestinians
I just get my question in. My question to you is what the IDF has been doing barbaric? Would you use the same adjective to describe what the IDF has been doing for the last year?
I certainly think the rape in State Taman was barbaric, yes.
You didn't answer my question. I'm asking if what the IDF has done in killing tens of thousands, what the Lancet recently said is 90,000 Palestinians. Is that barbaric in the same way that Hamas's reported rape is barbaric? Or do you?
No, there's a difference between war and war crimes. We have to distinguish between the two. Will investigations,
Israeli soldiers who rape children, are they barbaric?
Can I answer your question? Do you want to hear my answer or not? No, it was a rhetorical question, you said.
What about the Israeli soldiers who rape children? Are they barbaric or no? I'm curious. Or
what about Hamas executing Palestinians?
You seem to care.
I
would like to answer your question if I can.
All right, you know what? I'm going to declare our ceasefire.
You seem to care very much about
I've got to leave it there because no one can hear a damn word anyone say.
Oh my word. That was quite theatrical. One of the more comical showdowns on Piers Morgan I've seen to date. But let's break it down. Batya and Jonathan served us a buffet of double standards. Batya's barbarians on Hamas line was as suitable as a bull in a china shop, while Jonathan's dance around IDF actions, classic deflection. If you're going to call out barbarism, maybe apply it evenly or admit you're biased. Mariyum's theatrical flair turned the debate into drama, complete with dramatic pauses and interruptions. She was ready for a soap opera, not a serious discussion. Ahmed brought some solid points though, from a factual standpoint, cutting through the noise with hard truths about media narratives and double standards. Batya's dodging of whether IDF's actions are barbaric is like trying to watch a greased pig. She'd rather focus on Hamas atrocities, conveniently skirting around the messy bits involving her own side. If you're going to throw around words like barbaric, at least apply them evenly, or just admit you're playing for the home team. In the end, this was a masterclass. Stay sharp, question everything, and remember, truth doesn't pick sides. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the comments down below. See you later.